I never thought an ordinary day could turn into a stage where my parents and I would become actors in someone else's drama, unaware of who was really writing the script. It all started with their gift, the one they had been preparing for so long, carefully hiding every detail. They said it was a sign of my gratitude, a gesture I was supposed to accept as a symbol of their love and care. When they handed it to me, I felt a cold knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. On the surface, it was a beautiful box wrapped in shiny paper, but something in their eyes, in the tension of their smiles, told me this is not just a gift. I looked at them, trying to hide the tremor in my voice, and said, "I can't accept this." They froze, as if I had broken an invisible law of the universe, their faces paling, their smiles crumbling into fragile fragments. "How can you be so ungrateful?" my mother whispered, low and hoarse, full of hurt and disappointment. My father only nodded, his eyes cold as metal. "You don't understand what we're doing this for," he said, but I felt that behind those words lay something else, something they hadn't wanted me to see. I didn't immediately understand what was hidden inside that shiny wrapping. My parents had always been careful, always able to mask their true intentions beneath layers of care and flattery. But now, everything looked different. Something in their behavior, in the too cautious movements of their hands, the too careful smiles, made me doubt that what lay inside was kind at all. I took the box in my hands, feeling a weight that was strangely cold, almost alive. At that moment, I realized I wasn't just refusing a gift. I was about to uncover a secret they had tried to hide my entire life. And I understood that if I stayed silent, if I simply returned the box, I would lose something far greater than material things, my freedom and the chance to know the truth. My parents stood nearby, the tension between us thick like fog. I stepped back, hiding my hands behind my back, and said, "I need to know what's inside." Their eyes widened in shock, then darkened for a fleeting moment. I saw their confidence cracking, how they tried to come up with an excuse, but the words caught in their throats. For the first time, I saw them truly afraid. I felt my heartbeat echo in my ears as I slowly unwrapped the paper, each tear of the glossy sheet revealing more of the mysterious box. My parents' faces were rigid, almost statuesque, their eyes locked on me as if they were watching a ritual unfold that they had no control over. The closer I got to the truth, the more I sensed a shift in the air, a tension that made it hard to breathe. The box itself seemed heavier now, as if it were carrying not just a gift, but a weight of secrets too long buried. I hesitated, fingers trembling over the clasp, and in that silence, the room seemed to shrink, walls closing in, amplifying every whisper, every suppressed sigh. Finally, I lifted the lid, and inside, the object glimmered under the soft light. It wasn't something beautiful in the traditional sense, it was sharp, cold, and unsettling. I couldn't understand it at first, but the instant I recognized what it was, a shock ran through me so intense I almost dropped it. My parents inhaled sharply, their eyes flicking between me and the box, and I realized I had crossed a boundary they had never expected me to cross. I held it up, my voice shaking but steady enough to pierce the tension. This isn't a gift. This is a lie. This is everything you've been hiding." My mother's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes glistening, but she said nothing. My father's jaw tightened, a vein throbbing at his temple, and he muttered something under his breath that I didn't catch. I felt a rush of fear and exhilaration at the same time. For years, I had sensed that something in our family was off, that the smiles and celebrations hid fractures too deep to see. Now, finally, the truth was in my hands. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the heater, but in that quiet, the weight of unspoken truths pressed down on all of us. I stared at them, my chest heaving, and said, "You wanted me to be grateful for this? You wanted me to pretend? But I can't. I won't." They remained still, the shock giving way to a strange, almost predatory calm. "Do you understand what this is?" my father finally said, his voice low, steady, but threaded with menace. I nodded slowly, feeling a mix of horror and relief. "I do, and now everyone has to know." The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous, as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting to see which way the storm would break. I didn't wait for their response. The urge to expose the truth, to break the silence that had haunted our house for years, was too strong. I set the box down on the table with deliberate care, my hands shaking, and looked at my parents. Their faces were pale, eyes wide, filled with a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief. I could see the cracks in the carefully constructed masks they had worn for so long. "All these years," I said, my voice trembling but loud enough to fill the room, "you've pretended this family was perfect. Every smile, every celebration, every word of praise, you've hidden everything. And I was supposed to thank you for this?" My mother's lips quivered, as if she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. My father's hands clenched into fists, and I could see the struggle in his eyes, the fight between maintaining control and the creeping panic of exposure. I took a deep breath and opened the box fully, revealing its contents to them and to myself. Inside was a collection of documents, photographs, and letters, each one meticulously labeled, each one a piece of the story they had tried to bury. Names I recognized, moments I had been deliberately kept away from, secrets I had only sensed but never fully understood. And then was the last item, a small, unassuming envelope marked only with my name. My hands shook as I lifted it, and when I opened it, I found a letter written in my father's handwriting. The words hit me like a punch. Confessions, admissions, explanations of things I had never known, things that redefined every memory I had of my childhood. My breath caught, and my eyes welled with tears I hadn't felt in years. I looked up at them, my voice breaking. "You wanted me to be grateful for this? You wanted me to accept your lies as love?" My mother finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "We thought you weren't ready. We thought it would protect you." I shook my head, fury and disbelief coursing through me. "Protect me? You've been living a lie, and now it's over. I can't keep pretending. I won't." For a moment, the room was frozen in time, the air thick with the weight of truth and the tension of unspoken accusations. Then my father stepped closer, his expression unreadable, and said, "Once this is out, nothing will be the same. Are you prepared for that?" I stared back, feeling a mix of fear and liberation. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I can't live with the lies anymore." And in that instant, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. Not for them, not for me. The gift had been a trap, a final test of obedience and silence. By refusing it, by revealing its true nature, I had ignited something irreversible. A storm had begun, and we were standing at its center, powerless to turn back. The silence after my words felt heavier than any punishment I had ever imagined. My parents stared at me, frozen, as if the air itself had thickened around us, trapping us in a moment that stretched too long to breathe. I could feel their panic, subtle at first, then growing, like a tide threatening to drown everything we had ever known. My father finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "You don't understand what you've just unleashed." I met his gaze, refusing to look away, even as a shiver ran down my spine. "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. "I understand that you've spent years hiding the truth, controlling everything and pretending it was love. I understand that the gift wasn't meant for me. It was meant to bind me, to keep me silent. But I'm done with silence." My mother's hands trembled at her sides, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in her own facade, the fear she had always hidden behind softness and warmth. "Please," she whispered, almost pleading, "think about what you're doing. Some truths are too dangerous. Some things are meant to stay buried. I felt a chill as her words sank in. Dangerous, buried. The weight of her warning only made me more certain that I had to go forward. I picked up one of the photographs from the box, the edges worn and yellowed with age. It was a picture I had never seen before, a scene from a summer long before I was born, with faces I recognized but didn't understand. My heart raced as I noticed the details, the people, their positions, the subtle, almost hidden expressions that told a story far darker than any childhood memory I had. I realized then that the box was more than a collection of lies. It was a map, a history, a secret lineage of events that my parents had meticulously hidden. And now it was mine. I turned to them, holding the photograph between my fingers, and said, "Everything you've kept from me, everything you thought I wouldn't see, it's all here, and I will uncover it. All of it." My father's face hardened, a mixture of fear and anger flashing in his eyes. "If you go down that path, there's no turning back. You'll regret it." I swallowed hard, feeling the tension coiling tighter in my chest. "Maybe," I admitted, "but I'd rather face the consequences than live in your lies any longer." The room was silent again, but this time it was charged, electric, the kind of silence that promises change, danger, and revelation. I knew, with a certainty that made my pulse quicken, that once I took the next step, our lives would never be the same. The gift had been refused, the truth exposed, and a storm had begun. A storm that would unearth every hidden secret, every betrayal, every moment they had tried to bury. And in that storm, I would either find freedom or destruction. The following days were a blur of tension and quiet confrontations. The box remained on the table, a silent judge of everything unspoken, its contents spreading unease through every corner of our home. I couldn't stop thinking about the letters, the photographs, the documents, and the final envelope with my father's confession. Each piece was a thread in a tapestry of deception so vast that I could barely comprehend it, yet I felt compelled to follow it, piece by piece, until every secret was uncovered. My parents moved through the house like shadows, avoiding my eyes, their silence heavier than any argument. Every glance they threw my way carried a warning, a silent plea, or perhaps a threat. I couldn't tell which, and that uncertainty gnawed at me like a persistent ache. I started reading the letters in private, late at night when the house was asleep, my pulse racing as I discovered things I could never have imagined. Names I knew were not who they seemed. Events I remembered were manipulated, orchestrated, or hidden. And at the center of it all was a network of choices my parents had made, decisions meant to control not just me, but everyone around us. One letter in particular made my hands shake as I held it. It was addressed to me, but never sent, written years ago, detailing the reasons for the lies, the fears that had driven them, and the true purpose behind the gift they had insisted I accept. It spoke of power, of control, of secrets that could ruin lives if exposed. Yet it also revealed vulnerability, a rare glimpse into their fear of losing me, of losing the illusion of their perfect family. I realized then that my refusal of the gift was more than an act of defiance. It was a catalyst, a spark that could ignite everything they had tried to suppress. That evening, my father confronted me. His eyes were dark, the kind of darkness that carries both anger and despair. "You've opened something that can't be closed," he said, voice low, almost reverent in its caution. "Do you understand the consequences?" I nodded, clutching one of the documents tightly. "I do, and I'm ready." The tension between us was electric, a current that could snap at any moment. My mother's eyes were filled with tears, her hands trembling as she reached for me, but I stepped back. "I'm not the child you think I am," I said, voice firm. "I won't be controlled by your secrets any longer. I will uncover the truth, whether you like it or not." They exchanged a glance, one I had never seen before. A mixture of fear, resignation, and sorrow.
And in that moment, I realized that the storm had begun in earnest. It was no longer a question of acceptance or refusal. It was a battle between hidden truths and the light I was determined to shine on them. Every shadow in the house seemed to shift, as if alive, and I knew that nothing, not even the walls that had once felt safe, would remain untouched by the revelations to come.
The nights became unbearable, filled with a quiet dread that clung to every corner of my room. I could hear the faint creaks of the house, the soft, almost imperceptible footsteps of my parents as they moved through the halls, each one a reminder that they were watching, waiting, calculating. I pored over every letter, every photograph, every note in the box, piecing together a story I had been kept from my entire life. The deeper I went, the more I realized how intricately their lies were woven, how each act of deception served a purpose I had never suspected. There were names I recognized, faces I had trusted, moments I had cherished, all manipulated, controlled, hidden. The revelation made my chest tighten, and yet, with every new discovery, a fierce clarity emerged. I had to expose everything. One night, as the clock ticked past midnight, I found a photograph that made me freeze. It was taken years ago, in a place I had never been, with people I didn't recognize at first, but then I saw myself, a small child, present but removed from the scene, as if deliberately kept apart. The realization hit me like a blow. I had been watched, guided, manipulated from the start. And the gift, that meticulously prepared gift, had been the final step in their plan to control my future. My parents had always been careful, clever, precise, but they had underestimated me. I held the photograph to my chest, feeling both rage and sorrow. How could they have hidden this from me for so long? How could love and deception be so entangled that I couldn't tell one from the other? That night, I confronted them again. My father's expression was unreadable, his eyes dark pools of something I couldn't name. "You're pushing too far," he said, voice calm but icy. "There are things you don't understand, things that could destroy more than you can imagine." I met his gaze, refusing to flinch. "I understand perfectly," I said. "I understand that you tried to shape my life, my memories, my very sense of self. I understand that you hid the truth to control me. I also understand that I cannot accept your version of reality any longer." My mother's lips trembled, and I thought I saw a flicker of guilt pass through her eyes, but she looked away, unable to face me. "Once you go down this path," she whispered, "there is no return." I nodded, feeling the weight of her warning, but also the weight of my own resolve. "I'm ready," I said. And in that moment, I realized that the storm wasn't coming. It was already here. Every secret, every lie, every hidden moment of our lives was poised on the edge of exposure. I didn't know what would happen next, only that the world I had known was gone, replaced by one where the truth, no matter how painful, would be mine to uncover. And with that knowledge came both fear and an undeniable sense of power, the power to finally see everything clearly, and to confront the family I thought I knew in a way they had never anticipated. The day came when the storm could no longer be contained. I had gathered every piece of evidence from the box, every letter, every photograph, every hidden note, and laid it all bare on the table. My parents stood across from me, their expressions a mixture of fear, regret, and something I could only describe as helplessness. The walls of our home, which had once felt like a refuge, now seemed to close in, echoing every unspoken word, every secret betrayal. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of everything settle into my chest. "This ends now," I said, voice steady, carrying the force of years of suppressed truths. "All the lies, all the control, everything you hid from me, it ends today. I won't be your prisoner anymore." My father's jaw tightened, his eyes dark and unreadable, but he said nothing. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for one of the photographs, but I stopped her gently, holding the evidence between us like a barrier.
a truth too powerful to ignore. "I'm not angry just because you lied," I said, my voice softening with a strange mix of sorrow and resolve. "I'm angry because you thought I would never find out, because you believed I would accept a false reality just to keep the peace. But peace built on deception is no peace at all." The room was silent, every heartbeat amplified, the air thick with tension and the weight of revelation. And then something shifted. My parents' eyes met mine, a silent acknowledgement passing between us. Fear, sorrow, love, regret, all tangled together. It was not a forgiveness born of words, but of recognition. I realized in that moment that the storm we had lived through wasn't just destruction, it was clarity. The truth, no matter how painful, had the power to set us free. I closed the backs gently, not as an act of submission, but as an acknowledgement of what had been hidden for so long. "I will remember this day," I said, "not as the day I rejected your gift, but as the day I reclaimed my life." My parents nodded slowly, and for the first time in years, I saw something in their eyes that I hadn't seen before: vulnerability, honesty, the fragile but real spark of human connection. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt suffocating. The shadows of deception were lifting, and though the path ahead was uncertain, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: I would never again allow lies to shape my reality. The gift, once a trap, had become the key to uncovering everything, and in the wreckage of secrets and lies, we found something neither of us expected: truth, unfiltered and powerful, and the possibility of starting again.